Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fifth Paradigm and Patriot Reviews joint event. This is our next episode in the series. Today, we're going to talk about religious identities in political scenarios in contemporary times. We have with us Professor Mohsin Raza Kahn, who is a professor at the Jindal School of International Affairs, a very accomplished scholar who's published a lot of things, and he speaks about specifically religious identity politics and in the Asian context. So wonderful to have you. How are you doing?
Great, good to see you, Avirat and Archit. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Cool.
Archit, you can go with the first question.
Yeah, good morning, sir. So, as you know, the topic of the podcast is religious identities and identity politics in general. So, we'll start in a more generic way. Martin Luther King's dream was that there would come a time where the individual's identity would not be judged by his group but by his character. How consistent are we with that dream, especially in the context of the United States and what we have with the Black Lives Matter and other social movements going on there?
Well, no country is perfect, and the United States is also not perfect. It should have done a lot more for its black and other minority citizens. But I would not say that the dream is totally unfulfilled. The situation today is much better than what it was in the 1960s. So if you look at what the United States was like, for example, in the 19th century, or you look at what the United States was in the first half of the 20th century, or even up to the 1960s, 70s, the situation has gotten a lot better. Per capita income of blacks has risen. Black educational attainment has also risen. Now, it is true that it's an unfulfilled dream, partly because state policy has not put in enough into welfare, into education budgets, and so on and so forth. So, yes, it's America, though, is a progressive country, and it has progressed a lot over the last 100 years. And if they keep a positive trajectory, then in due course, Martin Luther King's dream may be fulfilled. But for the current moment, yes, it is true that there is also a lot of poverty and ghettoization with American blacks. And solutions have to be found through urban planning, through school systems, through various mechanisms. But I am optimistic that America will be able to slowly improve things as it has shown in the last 50, 60 years.
I had a small follow-up question on that. The African Americans have been consistently disproportionately voting Democrat, and their situation still hasn't, for the last 40 years, and their situation still has remained quite the same. So could voting Republican be a good change for them? And African Americans tend to do better in Republican ruled states. So would you see that as a solution or an alternative?
Yeah, irrespective of whether African Americans vote Republican or not, Republicans have occupied the central government in the US for at least half the time, if not more. If you look at the presidencies of, at least since the presidencies of Nixon and Ford and Reagan and Bush Senior and Bush Junior, they were all Republicans. So it's not as if Republican rule has been denied because blacks have not voted for them. The real problem actually is that blacks do not vote in large enough numbers. So in most countries of the world, poor people vote less than rich people. This is true for US, this is true for Brazil. And since blacks are mostly poor, they vote less and their turnout is less. India is therefore an exception where the turnout of poor people in elections is more than that of rich people. So I don't think if blacks, I think what would help blacks more is if they if they did larger turnouts. Because if they had done a larger turnout, for example, Al Gore would have won. He had more social welfare policies, which would have helped black education. Similarly, Hillary would have won. She had also better welfare policies than Trump for black education. So this not turning out, I think, has been more detrimental to blacks. But there is also a systemic problem in that Republicans do various forms of voting suppression. They prevent black registrations. They make it difficult for blacks to register, they keep polling booths far away from black centers for them to travel. They make voting tough for poorer people, who lack economic resources. So I think if better voter registration took place and better turnouts, I think that would help the blacks better than voting Republican. And increasingly, the Republican Party is turning against actually the welfare of poorer people. So whether you look at Trump's policies, etc., they don't inspire confidence that they would help even poor whites, leave alone poor blacks.
Oh, thank you, sir. Avirat?
So it's wonderful that you speak about India and Indian elections. So, right off the bat, my question to you is, we're a secular country, right? This is ensured to us in the preamble. So at the end of the day, what we see is a wide prevalence of religious identity politics in our nation. So don't you think this is like the flip side of secularism that we've had to deal with? Because it's obviously not a great picture.
I would just quote something that Perry Anderson likes to say. He says that India is secular as in drag. That is, you know what drag means? It's cross-dressing. So, India was secular, yes, in what it proclaimed or what its ambition to see itself was, as in its constitution by its founders. But India was never really secular, and there's a reason, because you see this constitution or this elites, what they wanted was just a creamy layer on top compared to the vast majority of India's public, which was poor, highly religious, and of course full of prejudice towards each other. And by this, I don't mean that only Hindus are prejudiced. Muslims are also prejudiced, and you can see this in Bangladesh, you can see this in Pakistan. So this seems to be the general situation in South Asia among poor people. And now the problem is India has become unsecular even among the elite. So three things happened. First of all, secularism came along with democracy and modernist economic socialist development. So we failed to develop. So development and especially socialism took a bad name. So did democracy. People prefer authoritarian rule. And similarly, secularism also, the triumvirate, the third in this triumvirate was demolished as well. And people felt that it was not leading to any benefits. And so they junked it out. The second fact was that a lot of social advancement did take place. But the people who came up in the social ladder were not modernists, were not secularists. They were mostly people who did not understand this concept. Secularism is a concept which comes out of modernity. Since modernity never arrived fully in India, that is, India never became an industrialized country, never rose in per capita income to the level of the West. Therefore, these social concepts also did not arise. Social concepts arise on an economic base. Society is transformed as people's technology and economy is transformed. That never happened. And these people who came up the ladder of the elites were basically people whose social culture was not secular at home and in the public space. So they imposed the same lack of secularism on the state. And the elites could not control it because it was a democracy, so they had to bend to the will of the majority. The majority was not secular. So over a period of time, India became less and less secular as this mass, this public took over the state, and these new elites rose who were not secular. and India did not economically develop, and therefore secularism also acquired a bad name.
Thank you, sir. Taking it a little deeper into Indian politics, don't you think communalism is very prevalent in the Indian political spectrum, and especially when we have a political party like the Bahujan Samaj Party, which violates the Election Commission guidelines of how a party should be named and not preferring and siding to a particular community or sect? What do you have to say about that? Because the Bahujan Samaj Party continues to mobilize the Bahujan or the backward classes.
Bahujan Samaj Party does mobilize the backward, but its name has nothing wrong with it. Bahujan only means the many. And as per Kanshiran, the founder, the many were actually the people of the lower caste, that is the OBCs and the who were known classically as the Shudras, and the Dalits, who were earlier known as the untouchables. They constitute a majority of the Indian population, in whose interest you don't find the Indian state working or the Indian economy working. That is, you'd never find them in positions of corporate governance or or government. Or so he was asking for a fairer distribution of resources and power. But from the very beginning, I mean, India had these majoritarian parties. So the predecessor of the BJP was the Jan Sangh. So it was already a party in 1950s. And so India has always had interest group parties, religiously and caste-based parties. Religious-based parties, of course, have been much more successful than caste-based parties, specifically the BJP, because no caste-based party has managed to capture national power, whereas the BJP has been able to capture not only national power, but a large number of states as well. So the Indian Constitution allows that. It allows identity politics to take place. And the reason identity politics has flourished in India is because the Indian economy has failed. When economies fail, identity provides an easy solution. It's like a quick fix. When your life is going south, a quick hit helps.
Archit?
Yes, sir. So, how would you describe the state of the religious minorities in the country? And the follow-up question of that would be, the media portrayal of them is often correct, but at the same time, many people do not connect with it. Sometimes, the portrayal is a bit exaggerated, one might say. So, like, how would you describe the whole situation?
The situation of minorities in India, as per the reports of Christophe Jaffalo and the Satcher Committee report, as well as the reports which have come out of Stanford, have not been positive. In fact, they've shown that Muslims are now the poorest group in terms of resources in India. That is, Muslims have fallen below the level of Dalits overall. And especially in urban India, Muslims are in a worse position than Dalits because they don't receive the benefits of reservations, which Hindu minorities such as Dalits, etc., receive. Even Sikhs have started receiving, and Buddhists also, but not Muslims. So, so is the position quite pathetic for tribals and Dalits as well. And these are not disputable because economic indicators show their poor per capita income, poor educational attainment, also the poor distribution of government schools in their areas, also their poor acceptance in government jobs. So, for example, Muslims in UP are 20%, almost, that is 19%, but their presence in jobs in the police and administration is around 2 or 3%. Even in West Bengal, where Muslims are almost 28, 29% of the population, their representation in police and government jobs is around 2-3%. So such a low percentage can only occur either due to active discrimination by the state and by the majority, it cannot occur in any other way. And if it has occurred, then it is the duty of the state to rectify this. But it refuses to rectify it. Also, if you see that toll that communal riots have taken of Muslims, that is in terms of Muslim businesses destroyed, Muslim lives lost. And I'm not talking just in terms of what happened in Gujarat or in the BJP states, but right through the Congress era, from the 1970s onwards, what has happened is that wherever Muslims become slightly economically successful, they are crushed, primarily because people feel challenged when a new group is rising and doing slightly better. You want to put it in its place. This is similarly the reason for Dalit atrocities. People feel that Dalits should remain in their position. When Dalits' economic situation improves, you will see that caste atrocities increase in that area. It is a way of teaching them their place and putting them in their place. So in the case of Muslims, this has been going on at least since the 1970s. Though the first riots took place in Gujarat in the 1960s, and Madhya Pradesh also 60s. But after that, from the 1970s, it has been endemic riots. And this has kind of weakened India, because for India to really rise, what it needs is social unity. It doesn't matter whether a Muslim is doing better or a Hindu is doing better, as long as an Indian is doing better, because that successful Muslim will create jobs for Hindus, and that successful Hindu will create jobs for Muslims. So instead of killing each other in rivalries, it is better that India improve. And for that, you need some kind of social unity, you need some kind of rule of law.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I'd like to understand a little about the Bangalore riots. What are your views on that? Because in these COVID times, it's something that's occurred, which is chaos, in my opinion.
Bangalore riots are, to be honest, shameful. Now the full details are not yet out. There's some investigation going, so I might be preempting myself. But it seems that a crowd assembled because the Prophet Muhammad was referred to in vulgar terms, and this was displayed on Facebook pages. Now, this cannot be a cause for rioting at all. Whether it is Hindu gods or Muslim gods or whatever they may be the situation. And the police should have taken preemptive action. That is, first of all, it should have prevented the gathering of a mob. The second was it should have taken down the Facebook post, or told the gentleman to take down his Facebook post, which was offensive. And thirdly, the Muslim community leaders should have reached the spot and controlled the crowd. This was shameful and should not be repeated going forth. And we have to take care of this. Because India seems to be going down in the increasing path of communal violence. If you look at Sudha Pai's book, Sudha Pai wrote a book called Everyday Communalism in UP, along with Sajjan Kumar. It shows that every day there are dozens of riots, small level riots in UP, which are instigated by the Hindu Yuva Bahini and various other VHP and RSS groups. These keep a permanent boil going. So these are not large-scale riots. These are small incidents. Sometimes they are not even communal incidents, but they are made into communal incidents. For example, a traffic accident can be made into a communal incident. This keeps the boil going. And by boiling India like this through WhatsApp, through these forwards, through these small level violences, polarization is ensured in elections. And yes, you may win an election, you may come to power, but the problem is that in the process you are highly damaging the social fabric and the economic structure of the country. So you need, and the first thing that you need is to increase the Muslim representation in the police. The problem is the Indian police has so few Muslims in it that the police has really no network in the Muslim areas. The reason American police is able to do so well is that it has a large network of black officers. These people provide intelligence in the black neighborhoods and help to police them. Whereas in the Indian police, there are no Muslims. There are few Muslims, and in the Indian intelligence, there are no Muslims. For example, there are no Muslims allowed. There's an unsaid rule in the RAW, the Research and Analysis Wing, in the IB, Intelligence Bureau. So how will you catch any person who is doing wrong, or if you accuse him of terrorism? Most of the people who are arrested for terrorism in India are innocent people. We are never able to collect or arrest the actual bomb blast accused, whether they are Hindu or Muslim, because we don't have sufficient intelligence. We don't have sufficient trust. So an effective police, an effective state is created by including everybody in it. So this is the mistake that India is making, which is similar to what Bangladesh and Pakistan are making. But the difference is that in India, the percentage of minorities is higher. So for India, this will be more damaging in the long term. That's what I would say.
Archit?
So just a follow-up question to that. Would you say the African Americans in America and Indian Muslims find themselves in a similar situation? Oh.
No, I would say that African large number of people who are willing to protest on behalf of blacks. So when you see the recent protests in America about Black Lives Matters and this policing gone wrong, most of them are actually whites, middle-class whites, who are protesting for blacks. We don't see this in India. We don't see Hindus coming out and protesting for Muslims. Had that been the case, the government would not have been able to bring legislation such as CAA or threaten NRC. Here we find a much more polarized society in India, where people are not ready to speak about issues of justice. So the situation of Muslims is similar to the situation of blacks in the 1940s and 50s and 30s, when American society similarly was polarized. In the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, you would not see that many whites protesting on behalf of blacks. There would be only very few whites. So our situation in India today is similar to America's situation in the 50s or 40s, I would say.
Okay. So the next question is about Amir Khan and his visit to Turkey. We have observed that Recep Erdogan has been leading a revisionist Turkey for the past 3 to 4 years since the failed military coup. And so Amir Khan's visit there has come under a lot of criticism, especially the media leads it back to his remarks on intolerance in India and how he doesn't feel safe in India. But so is this an issue, or is this something that media is making up? What would you say?
See, media in India is highly polarized now, and a large section of it owes its allegiance to a particular ideology. So the media has played up things such as, for example, a film star's suicide. It has made that into an issue of communalism and right wing versus left wing and all kinds of things. So because the problem is that these things sell. Now, with respect to Amir Khan, possibly Amir Khan should not have gone and met Erdogan's wife. So far, I've not seen pictures of Amir Khan with Erdogan himself. What I've seen are pictures with his wife. You could say that he should not have even met his wife. But more important than Amir Khan meeting or not meeting his wife is what the Indian embassy is saying. The Indian ambassador is tweeting pictures of Amir Khan and congratulating him for having met Erdogan's wife, India's ambassador in Turkey. So the Indian state is supporting Amir Khan's meeting Erdogan's wife, while the Indian media is against it. He says, so the first step should be by India's ambassador, India's state. Second thing is India's state is not criticizing Erdogan. That is, the Indian government or the Indian foreign ministry is not criticizing Erdogan or not downgrading relations with Turkey. So how can a private citizen do it? Had India had bad relations with Turkey to the point that the Indian embassy or the Indian ambassador or the Indian foreign service or ministry or the prime minister had done something, then I don't think Amir Khan would have met Erdogan's wife. For example, India has bad relations with Pakistan. You don't see Amir Khan going and meeting the Pakistani leader. And there's a good reason for that. India has bad relations with China. You don't see Indian stars going and getting photographs taken with the Chinese leader. But India does not have bad relations. Why doesn't the Modi government condemn Turkey first? Why doesn't the Indian ambassador condemn Turkey first? And then if Amir Khan does it, we could more legitimately criticize him. As a private individual, though, he should have avoided it. But the media playing it up is like the recent suicide phenomena. You know, it seems to be in contagion.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. It was wonderful interacting with you. Some crisp answers, some interesting points. So that's us wrapping up today's episode. Do feel free to check us out on YouTube, Instagram. We'll attach links. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good day.